everyone, it's Bob McCraney with This Month in Realty, and today we are continuing our group call sessions. I want to show that we've got agents across the country that can help you. So I've got a great group of agents here today, and I'm so thrilled to have everyone here. I'm going to let them go around and introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about your market. So let's start with Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle Maloney, and I service Southeast South Dakota and Northwest Iowa. I own a small brokerage, and I'm happy to be here today.
Okay, Maggie.
So I'm Maggie Rodriguez. I service Hermiston, Oregon and surrounding areas here in kind of central northern Oregon. I am, well, I don't own a brokerage, but I have a group here in the area, and yeah, that's what we do.
You will.
One step at a time.
Yes. Okay, Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Kaufman, and I am from Northern New Jersey. I've been a realtor for a good long while now, over 30 years, and I service the middle part of the upper part of New Jersey.
Okay, the middle of the upper part. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Alyssa.
I'm Elissa Burkhoff. I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm with Keller Williams Realty, and I service Metro Milwaukee and the surrounding counties, a few surrounding counties.
Okay, so I'm going to just throw some questions out here. Just overlap each other. This is not a moderated debate where Michelle gets 2 minutes and Alyssa gets 1 minute to rebut and everybody gets no. Let's just have a great conversation here. What do you say to people who say, "Why should I pay a realtor commission? Y'all don't do anything"? What's your response to that?
I love that question personally, because in this market especially, it's a really easy answer. I mean, always there's the answer that, you know, you get professional services and we help you negotiate and we know the business. And I think a lot of people think they know more about houses in the market than they actually do. Zillow can't tell them everything. But right now it's great because, you know, we can tell people if you list with a realtor, you know, you might get multiple offers and thousands of dollars over asking. Whereas you put it for sale by owner, you're going to take the first offer because you don't want to keep doing what you're doing. And it's our job to do that. So
I also tell clients that, you know, in this market especially, it's easy to get an offer. But going from getting an offer to the closing table, there are so many steps in between that so many people don't realize, and a lot we're doing behind the scenes that we don't have to involve them because we just, you know what we're doing and to make it less stressful for them. So it's the in-between stuff that makes us truly valuable.
I also like to add in that I believe in what both of you just said, but there's also the negotiation quotient, right? Where you can never be a first party negotiator and do the best job. It's just impossible. So you're dealing with your largest asset most of the time, and then you're trying to negotiate for yourself. And you lose the ability to negotiate properly if you're negotiating for yourself. So it's sort of like going into court without a lawyer. If it's important enough to be in court, you should have a lawyer. Well, if it's your largest asset and you're trying to negotiate terms or dollars or anything, you should have someone that does that for you, that understands how to negotiate.
That's an excellent point too.
Yes, I see it more as exposure. You can put it on Zillow, but the actual getting it out there to the most people in the shortest amount of time, someone has to be looking at Zillow in order to find it. And we have a lot of people moving in from out of the area, and just seeing that people, you don't get the most exposure out of just putting it on or putting a sign in the yard, which we see a lot of sign in the yards.
that's true. I mean, Zillow's not going to be able to tell you which neighborhood has the best school district, and you know, Zillow's not going to be able to tell you which neighborhoods maybe you want to avoid, or, you know, where the next interstate highway or helicopter port for the hospital is going. You know, that's the kind of stuff we know, you know.
Right.
Nobody saw the heliport coming. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So I want to ask, since I've got some of my best female clients here, in many industries, women are not treated equal to men and not paid equal to men. do you find the real estate industry still has social stigmas and limitations for gender? Because I see real estate being run mostly by women and gay men. So how do you, no, I'm serious. How do you feel? Because most of us come to real estate as a rescue industry. I was in IT for 19 years and I was like, I'm done with this. Let's go do real estate. It looks so easy. What is it that, do you feel this industry is better geared or not for women in society?
I think it is better geared for women in society. I know in my area, we still have that whole good old boys get, do the big pieces and then the women can have all the garbage. Not that we do, but we still have that around here. But you at least don't have that glass ceiling of if you put the work in, you don't have limits as far as what you can do.
We have a woman who's, I think she's 70, and she did 88 clients last year and $17 million all by herself. But I don't think she's probably, other than the post she put out telling us that she won an award for it, she's not out there telling people how good she is. And I think it's inherently natural, maybe more natural for men to get up there and say, bro, this is what I've done. I'm really good. And I think women, we're just sort of, it's ingrained in us to be a little bit more humble about it. And that's a total stereotype on my part, but I think that if all the women I know who are incredible in this business and who sell a lot of real estate and have incredible levels of competency, if they were out there putting out videos as much as a lot of the guys who I think a lot of them are posing saying, I've got a team of 20 people, but they make 10,000 a year. I think there would be a lot more respect and a lot more women would be interested in doing it if they knew how truly entrepreneurial it is. So my 2 cents.
Anybody else?
Well, I find it on a kind of a case by case basis, actually, because I do sometimes, I'm partnered with my husband. And if I'm, running into some trouble, sometimes I'll send him in without me because, men tend to listen to men a little bit better. It's true. So I have that, and I have seen a little bit of it recently. And I think that it is less so than in most industries, let's say that, but I do see it every blue moon.
I agree. I think it's a lot of it individual cases. I mean, I was on the buying side this past summer and met the listing agent at the showing. And he said, why don't you open up the door for me, sweetheart? So that was an experience that I've never encountered before. But so, I think it's individual, but in terms of we always talk about safety in real estate. I think for, everyone needs to be safe. But for women, especially, it's kind of zeroed in on females doing open houses alone, showing appointments to strangers alone. So I don't know. I really don't. I think that in some cases it's on individual basis, but as a whole, like safety.
Huge issue.
Right.
Huge issue. And I can say, as I'm 5'6" and my only defense is biting sarcasm. So I really, I don't let any of my agents do real estate, do open houses alone, male or female. We have to work in teams. There are 7 to 10 agents a year who get knocked off. So it's incredibly important. Let's look at, and I don't have stats on this. I should have pulled it. Women in this industry, is there a glass ceiling as far as being elevated to the level of executive in a large brokerage system? Let's look at the larger, some of us have individual, brokerages, but in the larger franchise systems, are there enough women at the C-level bracket across this industry, or is it still a glass ceiling that men dominate the large corporate franchise systems?
There's not one single woman in the history of real estate investment trusts. There's not one woman who's ever led one, ever. Still.
Anybody have thoughts on that? And who wants to be the first? Because I'll vote for you.
I'm not part of a big franchise, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's sad that there's not more. I can't believe that it would be by choice. That's all I know.
Okay, I'll get off the feminist kick here because this is work. This is yeah. Ah. So what's the number one piece of advice right now you're giving to your buyers?
It's,
Other than here's a Valium and let's keep looking at houses.
you know, it's hard because you have a lot of buyers are doing, well, let's see what happens. You know, I've had buyers last year, oh my God, it's so crazy, it's got to calm down. Well, now the rates are increasing. So what I'm telling buyers is that, you know, rates are going to increase and your purchasing power decreases when the rates increase. So let's try and get into something now rather than later, because you can afford more with lower rates.
For me, I have been suggesting that we look at properties below their max value, significantly below. Like if we're going to look at a property that's listed for $600,000 and the max value that they can afford is $600,000, they can't afford the house.
Yeah.
Right? They're just not competitive. So I say that up front. I said, please, you know, let's look at the 550 range because that's what you can afford, because you have to bid 600 to get it.
What's your average price point in Northern New Jersey?
Well, it really varies. I mean, even within my single county, I would say it's about 500.
Okay. Alyssa, what's your average price point?
350.
Yeah, we're about 350 to 4. Maggie, the question was, what's your advice to buyers and sellers? And tell us your price point.
So my average sales, well, the average sales price in that area is probably around 300 right now. As far as buyers go, I've got a lot of people with interest rates that they're not able to purchase, or they're right on the cusp of there are no homes left. So if they're looking to purchase, you know, hey, these are the options today. There may not be options tomorrow as far as that little 250 and under when our average sales price is 300. If they're in the higher price points, our market is soft. So, you know, if there aren't any, like if they're over, you know, looking at something in the 600 range, stuff's sitting, it's not selling. So I recommend to say, hey, you know, these prices are potentially a little bit negotiable. Run your numbers, talk to your lender, you know, see if these are things that you can do, and see what, you know, if this is something you're interested in, throw an offer out there and see what happens.
Okay. Michelle?
My average price point, well, it was 220,000. It's probably more like 250,000 now. I've just been telling buyers that if they have a house to sell, they need to talk to a lender first. Even though I think their house would sell quickly, just in case it's one of those soft ranges, that they make sure and see if they can get a bridge loan. So we can
Okay.
eliminate as many barriers as we can. I have really struggled with my first-time home buyers in my rural development. Any federal back loan, I feel bad for veterans. They're not getting anything. It's unfortunate. I wish I could convince a seller to say, I'll, you know, preference given to veterans or first-time home buyers, but I haven't had anyone bite on that yet. What's that?
Sorry, I interrupted you. I just closed on a VA loan. Yeah, a few weeks ago, which I was thrilled about.
Yeah, I think
I put a picture. I put a picture, not of my client, but of people in a war situation on top of my contract. So it's the first thing they say. This is a VA loan, but remember what they gave up for us.
They've already made their down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got one accepted with that, actually. So
one thing I see in this industry is all these postcard home buyers, all these iBuyer programs. They're grabbing up I think more the lower end house range. They're keeping the youth or the younger buyers in this generation from getting into the property ladder where they can own a house for 5 or 6 years. Maybe they have their first kid or something, and then they sell that house and graduate up to a larger house and larger house. That whole area of our society is being kept out of the wealth ladder by these industrial buyers who are grabbing the homes up sometimes they're holding them as rentals, sometimes they're putting some Home Depot repairs and jacking the price up 50 grand. I think this is something that we need to talk about economically, as far as the younger generation is being wiped out. And in 30 years, they're not going to be as well off as we are, because we were able to get into homes. Anybody have thoughts on that? It's not redlining based off race, which had the same effect racially. This is kind of like redlining based off the corporations taking all the properties away.
Economic redlining.
There's the word I was looking for. Anybody have thoughts on that?
We don't have the iBuyer programs in our area, but if those first-time home buyers aren't able to get into homes, there's not going to be a second home market in a couple of years or whatnot, because they're not going to be able to save up the money.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck, and getting into a home with zero down gets them at least some equity over time. And without that, they're going to have all their fancy toys, but they're not going to have it.
Yeah.
It's like
Anyone
forced
else?
savings.
Anyone? Okay.
It will be interesting to see in the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard because I have a lot of investors. I live in a college community and there's a lot of investors. I'm an investor. And I bought a house that I'm redoing. I'm going to hold it for 2 years and then sell it, because otherwise there's huge tax implications for me.
Yeah.
But it's been hard because I feel bad, because it would be a perfect house for someone retiring or a first-time home buyer. It's not a high.
But I think it's different between you're an individual investor. You're
Right.
not buying
You're talking about
4,000 houses off the market each month
Yeah.
and putting them into a trust.
Yeah.
Or into a financial situation. Yeah.
Well, but it's matters of scale though, Bob. I mean, it's
Right.
the same, right? I live in a town of 10,000 people, so 5 houses is a big deal. There's
Yeah.
8 houses on the market, so it's a big deal.
So it's all Michelle's fault. I
Right.
see.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So the next question would be, what do you think the next big thing is in real estate?
In what way?
Is it a technology shift? Is it a shift in interest rates? Is it a shift in builders putting out more product? What's the next big thing that you think might be coming in real estate? It might be localized, different
yeah.
answers.
In my market, I
Amazon's
could
moving in, or Tesla, or something like that.
in my market, I can see with interest rates, we've got a ton of builders that are breaking ground, but nobody that has a product they can sell right now. I think interest rates are going to go up, and then as soon as those all those developments finally get going, people aren't going to be able to purchase them, just based on with interest rates going up and what people can afford now, and what the builders that are currently building, they always promise, oh, we're going to help first-time home buyers to be in that price point, and then they're like 100,000 more. So all these, the ones that are, I think we have quite a few in the process. I think as soon as they get going, it'll be really interesting to see how that lands just in our little pocket.
I'm hopeful for a stabilization with the interest rates going up, and buyers moving towards renting. I've had a few buyers rent on me for the year. So I'm hopeful that we can see some kind of stabilization in our pricing, because right now we don't have it. We still are increasing a solid 1% a month. And it's just really hard for these buyers to, now we increased 1%. And we've got an increase of 1% in the interest rate. So their buying power has just gone down. So I'm very hopeful that we will see some houses coming to market, and that we will have some, that it'll stabilize a little bit in our area.
Alyssa?
I mean, I'd say for us, it would be interest rates as well. I mean, that's
the biggest impact coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of commercial buildings are emptying out because everybody's working from home now. COVID taught us we don't need an office for these big corporations. And there's some commercial spaces that are going to convert condo. So I get the feeling, I live in Dallas-Fort Worth, so we are a sprawling city. We take up 4 counties, and we're actually ancillary. We have 9 counties if you go out further, but we're starting to become more of a vertical market, especially if you want to be in Dallas County or Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth. It's going much more vertical. people are looking for secondary dwelling units on their property. Can they have a Airbnb or a Verbo on the, somewhere else on the property? We're seeing some of the larger lots in, original downtown lots, closer into the city, where they're like, can we subdivide and build a second house here? So it's causing some, ingenuity in how we're building. And some of the communities are trying to put down ordinances about not being able to plow it over and put a mansion there. But it's interesting how now that we are running out of central land, how Dallas is finally changing, because until we hit Oklahoma, we're just going to keep growing. We're just going to become kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with the East Coast, but you've got Washington, Baltimore, Philly, New York City, and they all just run together. I know I forget somebody there in Jersey, sorry. And you're just gonna run them all together. Of course, East Coast. I'm sorry, Tony, but yeah, it's just one megapolis right there. Dallas and Fort Worth are kind of growing in that direction. So I think what we're going to see is change in commercial over to residential. Anybody else have that? If you're obviously, I mean, Michelle and Maggie are in smaller markets. What do y'all see in the larger markets?
I definitely see that. We have huge office buildings turning into mega, 4-story high condo complexes and townhouses.
Alyssa, you having anything like that in Milwaukee?
More residential.
Yeah.
Coming, building new, but in the Milwaukee area, the city of Milwaukee, not so much that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. So what would be something, if I'm moving to your area, if I'm moving to Vermilion or Northern New Jersey or wherever, what's something coming from Texas I would need to know about living in your area?
It gets really cold in February, but it gets really cold in Dallas now too. So
yeah, but y'all keep your power grid. We just get rid of it.
Yeah, I know. We have no state income tax. So for other than Texas and Florida and Delaware, it's a big raise for a lot of people. You had asked about what's the next big thing in real estate, and I think I think it kind of ties into the question. I think the thing is that people know they don't have to live in Dallas to work in Dallas. And so people are moving. We're seeing a lot of people moving to our state because of the taxes, and there's all sorts of political reasons they're doing it as well. But, I think, if I didn't sell real estate, I could, move to Wisconsin and, do whatever I wanted to and work on a computer most of the time. And I think people are choosing to live where they want to live rather than choosing for the job. So
I think that's
it's causing a lot of moving around. So
yeah. So Alyssa, if I was moving to Milwaukee, what would I need to know coming from Dallas?
Get a winter coat, and that we are on the lake and we've got a fabulous city, and people think of we're like a mini Chicago, but when people come here, they they don't expect to see what they actually experience. We've got a lot in terms of cultural museums, music, great restaurants. So, and it's less expensive than Chicago.
What's the population of Milwaukee?
That's a good question.
Metro?
I'll look it up.
I can Google it. It's a little easier to remember when it's 11,000 people versus many
It's
million,
more than that.
5 counties. Yeah. Yeah.
Do they, when they have a baby in Vermilion, do they go increment the sign up one?
They do. They do. Pretty much.
Penny, what do people need to know about moving to New Jersey? Because all I know is New Jersey jokes.
That's so funny. Well, I think that people are shocked when they get here if they haven't really explored New Jersey, because it's gorgeous. It's green, it's full of trees, mountains and beaches. And so there's a real lot to do here, even if you're not, close to the city. But if you travel just, any direction in an hour, you can be on top of a mountain. You can be at the ocean. Or you can be in Manhattan from where I am. So there's so much to do in this location. Plus we have in addition to having Manhattan at our doorstep, and it really is, you jump on a train and you're in Manhattan in a few minutes, you get all of this phenomenal cultural happenings because they practice their Broadway shows here. So we get to see them before they go on Broadway a lot, and that is super fun, right? But then there's also this aspect of the woods, and the woods around us are spectacular. There's views and there's valleys, and the woods, people probably don't think of New Jersey in that manner, but it is so verdant. It's green and spectacular.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Maggie, what about you?
Well, we're halfway between Portland and Boise, but otherwise it's very dry here. We have all our seasons and we have a lot of sun and a little bit of sagebrush and a little bit of irrigation, and we have jobs here. So I don't know.
Who's your biggest employer there?
Oh, agriculture and just in general, but we have a lot of transportation because we're right at the intersection of two interstates, and distribution, agriculture, yeah, and we're getting a lot of data centers for Amazon.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we have cheap electricity, cheap gas, and water.
Okay. So I think of all the people on here, maybe your town has the lowest cost of living.
Yeah, things are slow here, is what I tell people when they move here, but not intelligence wise, just we are a little bit slower than I don't know, anybody else around us.
In Manhattan, yeah.
Yeah, definitely from you guys. I'm sorry.
So my next question would be, is it too easy to become a realtor these days? We see a deluge of realtors, and it's a rescue industry. I hate my life. I want to I'll go be a realtor. HGTV makes it look so easy. Is it too easy in our states to get into this industry and then practice the craft poorly?
Oh, it's very easy to practice the craft poorly. Yes, it is too easy to become a real estate agent, and the tests don't teach you how to actually do it. So people get their license and then they go out and they find their friends and they go and try to sell a house, but they don't know how to fill out the paperwork, or they just don't fill out the paperwork, and then they send it on and hope for the best and say a little Hail Mary and see what happens. But it leaves their clients exposed.
Yeah.
So in South Dakota, if you want to be an appraiser, they're switching all the rules, but currently, you have to do 200 hours of supervised appraisals before you can actually be fully licensed to do like your own hang out a shingle. And I always thought that would be such a great idea. Not to that same extent, but maybe you have to submit your forms for the first 5 transactions you do. And some agents, that would take them 5 years, and that's what I'm saying. It's the part-time people that aren't, there are a lot of part-time people who really work on their craft, but there's a lot of part-time people that don't, and people don't know the difference when they just click. So it is way too easy to be a realtor, in my opinion.
Our tests, I agree. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Michelle.
No, go ahead.
Our tests are testing to make sure that we're doing things that are not illegal.
Right.
They are not teaching the new realtors what they need to know in order to be effective for their clients.
Right.
And that's something we need to remedy, and we need to remedy it in one of 2 ways. I believe they should be made to understand what each document is for and the legality of it. And in New Jersey, I don't know, most of you probably don't have to contend with attorneys, but in New Jersey, we fill out the contract and it goes to an attorney and it gets rewritten anyway. But when we get these contracts, a lot of times they don't understand what they wrote. So their clients are thinking one thing and they've written something, and it's really a big problem in the end for their clients. So that really needs to be remedied, because on the other side of that transaction, I always try to make sure that everyone understands what's happening, but it's so often that they don't. Their clients are being left in the dark. That is a very scary thing. So I think that we really need to improve what we're doing for these new agents. And I love your idea, Michelle, of having someone, even if it's 5 transactions, you still don't know anything. But at least you'll have figured out the paperwork at that point
I think
and the
it,
flow of the transaction.
I think it's, might be easy to become a realtor, but to stay one, you know, is not. And I think a lot, in the market that we're experiencing right now, I think a lot of people have gone into real estate because you get a listing and it sells and you can, you know, just make money. But when that changes, I mean, you know, you have to, the business doesn't just fall in your lap. So that will be a challenge for those who came into real estate to have a great year versus a great career.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I always thought people should have to retest every couple of years. Everybody should have to go in and retest. When I got into real estate in Texas, they had, in 2003, they had just implemented the CE requirements that people had to take more education every couple of years. And I ran across some brokers who were, I've been in the business 30 years. I don't even have to take classes. And I'm like, and you're proud of that. So as a brand new realtor, I've had more education than you've had in the last, 24 months.
It's
And
not
just
only,
astounded me.
right. Well, I was thinking it's not only a disservice to the clients, it's a disservice to the person that's trying to become a realtor, right? Because these people are spending thousands of dollars. They're giving up months of their time trying to get into this profession, and they're not being helped in a way that is effective enough.
Yeah. And that is a disservice to them. The 87% failure rate
Mhm.
in this industry it's an indictment of this industry, because I think it's two things, twofold. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. One, I think people think it's too easy, and two, the brokerage system is broken. The brokerage system is I mean, people are hiring 40, 50 agents at a time because they're losing 30 or 40 on the back end, and they're just kind of shaking them out to find the top 3 or 4. And as long as they're paying their fees, they can still work here. What other industry takes that style of hiring and the liability to the broker? I mean, those of us who have been independent brokers, it's like, I really do care how you fill out your contract.
Mhm.
Somebody else, tell me what you think about that.
Well, I had a continuing ed person who once told me, every contract you fill out, you should fill it out assuming that it's going to go to the state Supreme Court, because they're going to be looking at that contract and they're going to be picking it apart. And if you make one mistake, then you could cost you and your clients thousands of dollars. And so I've always kind of taught my agents that principle, that, you need to pay attention. It would be interesting if you could get, I mean, I'm a realtor, and so it would be interesting if you could get the National Association of Realtor to take a lead on that and say, you need to work with us on documents or contracts or something. But when you have a fee-based organization, it's hard. They're not going to self-deplete their own finances, So it's a losing game, unfortunately. We just need better brokers. We need better brokers, better
Very
training.
true. Very true.
People that care more than just money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, culture matters. I mean, I'm a small broker. I've had agents come in and come out, and they were all my mistake. I take full responsibility. I just had a body, and I didn't pay attention to culture. And now I'm like, I'm not hiring anybody until you walk in the door and you can have lunch with us. And I don't want to, I mean, I have to want to spend time with you and want to help you. And if you have a different attitude than I do about the business, they're just in it for a quick buck. No, can't do it.
Cool. Any other ideas on this one? Okay, last question I'm going to throw out here, and then I'll let y'all get back to your days. What's the craziest thing that's happened to you when you've been with a client? I've been in a car accident with a client. I've rear-ended a client while we were going to a showing. I've shown a house with people sleeping in a bed or sleeping. We hope they were really asleep. And I've shown a house with a loaded handgun sitting on the dresser. What's something crazy you've had happen during a showing or listing experience?
I have one that's not necessarily one of those, but I had a client call me up and say he was ready to sell his house. But he bought it with his girlfriend, so he needed me to go knock on the door and tell her that they were breaking up and that he was selling the house. And I was like, hey, I do a lot of things, but that is not
No.
it. I'm really sorry. You're gonna have to have that conversation yourself.
That's great.
8th grade. But he didn't want to tell her, and he just wanted to sell their house.
Oh my God. Who
Bummer.
else?
So, oh, you go
Go ahead,
Alyssa.
go ahead. You go.
I have a lot of them. I'll tell one quickie and one funny. Well, the hysterical one is I walked in on clients. Now I walk in the house and I always yell, realtor.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Because, you know, whatever, because of all these experiences that I've had. So I walk in, I yell realtor. I'm walking through the house, the bedroom door is closed. I don't hear anything. They're doing it doggy style so that we can see the whole thing. Yep. Yep. So I called the realtor and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought they knew we were coming. She's like, oh, you're the 5th realtor that called me on this. I'm like, you couldn't give me a heads up. So it was there. They weren't really selling their house. They just wanted people to see. And so another time I walked in and it was the 80s. So we didn't I left a message on their phone and he didn't retrieve it. And he was in a brand new house in the back corner of the bathroom. And so when I walked into the master bathroom, he was walking out of his shower and I dropped the key and it landed at his feet. And at that point, it was only a key. You open the door with your key, like you had a safe there was a key that everybody had, the same key. So I dropped my key and it landed at his feet. And I had lost it. I was 20 something. I had lost it twice already. And the board said, if you lose it again, you can't be a realtor for the rest of the year. So I was sitting in my car crying. I couldn't drive because my leg was trembling. And when I put my foot on the brake, it was like, and he walks out with his towel smirking and hands me the key. And another time I stepped onto a stair with cave crickets and I flicked a cave cricket that was in my skirt onto my client's dress, into her cleavage. She had really big cleavage and she ripped her shirt off and we were running around the backyard with my skirt over my head and her shirt flailing. Okay, and that'll be it. Those will be my top 3.
What's a cave cricket?
Cave crickets are spiders they're not spiders, they're crickets, but they look like spiders and they're like, the body's like this big, but their legs are like this big.
Ooh.
So the whole thing itself
Oh,
is
I'd
like
take my clothes off too. I'd be like, get them off
this
me.
big.
Yeah.
So I had a prairie skirt on too. So I'm flailing like this skirt over my head. It was a thing. And she took her shirt off and she was running, screaming around the backyard of this $1 million house. And it was the 80s. So it was like a $3 million house. And she stomped her way into their convertible Porsche, never to be seen again.
Well, my stories aren't that good.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, Alyssa.
You should have gone last for sure.
Right, exactly. Well, aside from walking and showing a duplex and having 2 college students in bed while, we walk in the room. And I was with first-time clients standing outside after I showed them a house, and I was wearing a skirt and a bee flew up my skirt and stung me, my leg. But the weirdest story though is I met some clients at an open house and they came back probably like 6 months later because then they were ready to start looking, and we were looking at probably 10 houses that day. And I said, well, the next house is, around this area. I grew up in the area. And my client said, oh, really? I grew up in that area too. What street did you grow up on? And I said, I told her, and she said, oh, that's the street I grew up on. And then I said, what's your address? And she told me, and I said, that was my address. I'm like, you live in my old home. So my
Wow.
client lives in the house that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
That
Which
is crazy.
So weird. I mean, it was just like, that was the crazy without a funny crazy, but just
Small world
Yeah.
crazy.
small world, because they lived out of state. So when I met them at an open house, they were in Illinois, and then they were moving back to be near family.
Interesting.
Oh my God, that's crazy. Well, mine is just weird and it's not as good as any of these, but I was showing a guy, we were doing a community tour. He was a candidate for a job at the university, and it had just rained like crazy. And I'm sure it's the same where you live, that all the earthworms come out
Yeah.
and they're all over the sidewalks after a big rain. Well, this gentleman was not from the United States, and he lived in a place where everyone lived in high rises and there was not very much grass. And so he was absolutely appalled at all of these earthworms. And he made me guarantee that if I found a house for him, could I please show him something with no earthworms? No, I can't. I literally
That's not
can't.
how this works.
So, and I came back to my office and I said, that's chapter 5 in my real estate book of crazy things in real estate right there. No earthworms, please, is the name of that chapter.
Wow, I forgot one. So there's a guy, the gay realtors in town all know each other. And there's a guy who will hit each one of us up, and he'll ask to see a house. And he says, I'm a nudist, so I want to see the house naked. Can we do that? And I'm like, first of all, we all talk to each other, so we know the guy's like trying to do this again. I'm like, do you have a pre-approval letter? And he never answers me back.
Not do you have pants?
No,
Pre-approval letter.
I want to treat him like any other client. Do you have your pre-approval? Sorry, we can't go see a house. But yeah, but he wants to see the house naked. And I'm like, creepy AF. Just not doing this. No.
Yeah.
So does he like get out of his car that way?
I don't know,
or-
because I've never met the person. But
You
then all
didn't
the other
even
gay realtors in
see if
town are
he showed
texting
up?
each other going, hey, he's back.
He's
You know,
back.
block this number.
Is it your
So-
intention to walk from the car to the door with no clothes on?
How did you not say no, but I'll go to an open house just to see if he shows up?
Because I don't want to be in an open house with some stranger walking
Well,
through the
you
door.
used to be
But then
fine
you have
watching
somebody
walk
else
in.
with you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's just odd what you see in this industry that they don't tell you about.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
anyway, thank you all for being here and doing this. In my
Yeah.
mind, you all talk to each other all the time because I talk to you each
Oh.
week and you're all dear friends and I appreciate you being here. Friend each other on Facebook and let's get some referrals going and let's just have a great weekend.
Nice to see you, women.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.